My name is Zephyr Lorne. I spent the last 12 years making Lorne Luxury Stays the very best company for mountain vacation rentals. I worked so hard to make it perfect. Every cabin, every lodge, every vacation home was something I had looked at, checked, and planned carefully. I helped make the company famous for beautiful mountain homes that people loved to visit. I worked with my team day after day making sure everything was just right. Yesterday, my little brother Cale, who is now the boss of the company, leaned across the boardroom table at me. His face was red and his voice was loud. "Say sorry to my girlfriend right now or you're fired," he shouted. My parents, who were sitting at the table, just nodded and smiled. They looked proud of him like he was a hero for saying it. I looked straight at Cale and said calmly, "Fine." This morning, Cale walked into the office, smiling like he had already won the argument. He was ready to enjoy his little victory. But when he looked around, his smile disappeared. My desk was empty. My computer was gone. My things were all packed up. And right in the middle of the desk was my resignation letter. Thayer, the company lawyer, came running into the office behind him. His face was pale and he looked like he had seen a ghost. "Tell me you didn't send this," he gasped. Cale's happy, smug smile disappeared instantly. The whole conference room went silent. Nobody said a word. Everyone just stared at us wide-eyed. If you've ever been treated unfairly by your family, you might understand how I felt. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe and join the awesome community. Drop a comment below to tell me where you're watching from and what you think of the story. Celine, my little brother's girlfriend, decided she wanted to take credit for the biggest deal in our company's history. She wanted to show everyone she was smart and important. On the screen were a group of very rich investors from Charlotte. They wanted us to build 42 special mountain lodges at the Ridge Collection. These weren't just regular cabins. These were custom luxury homes, built perfectly for vacation rentals. Celine was wearing a blazer that was way too big for her, and she smiled as if she knew everything. She told the investors, "We will have all 42 lodges ready in just 11 months. But anyone who had ever worked in construction in Western North Carolina would have laughed. 11 months? That was impossible. Even if everything went perfectly, it would take at least 28 months to build that many homes safely and legally. I was called into the video call at the last minute because the investors specifically asked for me. I am the head of project development, which means I make sure everything gets built on time, safely, and on budget." As soon as Celine finished talking, one of the investors asked me, "Is 11 months realistic?" I didn't hesitate. I said, "No. 28 months is the absolute earliest. And that only works if the weather is perfect and there are no supply problems." Celine's confident smile froze. She didn't know what to say. The investors thanked us and ended the call. 2 hours later, I sent an official email to all the investors. I also copied the board and Cale, who is the CEO. The subject line said, "Revised realistic timeline and cost breakdown." I attached a full plan that explained why 11 months was impossible. I included the full schedule, contractor quotes, budgets, and every single detail. I wrote it professionally because it was necessary. If we had promised something impossible and failed, it could have cost the company millions of dollars or even gotten us sued. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, Cale stormed into my office and Celine followed him, walking like she owned the place. "What the hell is this email?" Cale shouted, slamming his phone on my desk so hard that the screen cracked. Celine crossed her arms and said, "You just made me look incompetent in front of people who were ready to wire us $20 million. I stayed calm. I told them the truth, correcting an impossible promise before it became a disaster. That's my job. Cale's face turned red with anger. "Your job is to make the company look good, not throw my girlfriend under the bus," he said. Celine jumped in again. "She's jealous. She's always been jealous ever since Dad made you see." Cale straightened up, puffed out his chest, and acted proud like his new title meant everything. He leaned closer and said, "Take the email back. Send a new one saying 11 months is aggressive but doable. Do it today." I didn't move. I refused. I would not lie to clients who were about to send us 8-figure deposits. I knew that if I sent the email saying 11 months was possible, the project would fail and my team would be blamed for something that wasn't their fault. Celine gave a dramatic sigh and said, "She's jealous. She's always been jealous." Cale leaned closer. "Apologize to Celine for undermining her, or I take this to the board as insubordination." I looked at him and said nothing. I just stood up and left. That night, I forwarded all the emails and messages to Evren, my second-in-command, with one simple line: start documenting everything. Just in case. I didn't know how fast that just in case would become important. The next morning I walked into the boardroom and said, "Fine," then walked out. No argument. No yelling. I just left while Cale kept talking to the empty air. The board members stared at their laptops as if they had just discovered something new. My parents didn't even try to stop me. I took the elevator to the 5th floor, went into the office that had been mine for 12 years and started packing. The view of the Blue Ridge Mountains stayed the same, but everything else felt borrowed. First, I packed the framed permits for every property I had helped build since I was 26. Then I packed the awards I had won from the North Carolina Vacation Rental Managers Association for 3 years in a row as the best luxury portfolio. I wrapped each award carefully in bubble wrap. Next, I packed the team photos. 38 people who had trusted me to fight for budgets, schedules, and quality while Cale handed out bonuses to his friends. I had built the development division from 4 people to 80. The revenue from my projects paid for the private jet that Cale now flew and the Land Rover that Celine drove. Yet every Christmas my mother, Isolde, introduced Celine as basically our daughter-in-law, while she asked me when I planned to settle down and have real grandchildren. Growing up, the favoritism had been small but constant. Cale cried because he got the new bike. I earned straight A's. Mom said that was expected from the older child. When Dad decided to step back 3 years ago, he didn't hold a search or look at performance metrics. He simply handed the CEO title to Cale at his 27th birthday party in front of the whole company. I stood there holding a slice of cake while everyone clapped for my little brother, who had never closed a single deal on his own. Mom pulled me aside that night and whispered, "Don't make a scene, Zephra. This makes your father happy." From that day forward, Cale signed the paychecks and Celine started showing up at executive meetings in 6-inch heels, giving creative input that nobody asked for. Every time I pushed back on corners they wanted to cut, Mom would call me afterward. "Be supportive. He's your only brother." I kept packing. The silly mug that said "World's Okayest Sister" that Cale gave me went in the trash. The emergency binder I built with 300 pages of contractor contacts, permitting shortcuts, and crisis plans stayed on the desk. Someone else could figure out how to finish the Ridge collection without it. My phone lit up with texts from my team. Evren wrote first. "They just announced you're suspended without pay until you apologize. What the hell is going on?" Leora asked, "Is this real?" Oren sent a simple skull emoji. I typed one reply to the group: "Take care of yourselves. I'll be fine." Then I turned the phone face down and kept packing. By 6 o'clock the office looked like I had never existed. 4 cardboard boxes and 1 rolling suitcase held 12 years of my life. I loaded them into my Jeep, shut the door, and sat in the quiet parking garage for a long minute. The weight I'd carried since childhood, the constant need to prove I belonged, suddenly felt lighter than the boxes in the back. I drove home through the mountains as the sun dropped behind the ridges, already knowing exactly what I had to do next. That night I sat alone in my downtown Asheville loft. A glass of wine sat in my hand. The boxes from the office were still stacked by the door. I opened my laptop and created a new folder called Everything. For 5 years, I had quietly saved every single piece of evidence. Every time Celine swapped premium cedar siding for cheap pine to pocket the difference. Every time she forced contractors to sign secret side letters that took money out of our margins. Every time she promised clients impossible completion dates and blamed my team when they couldn't magically make winter shorter. I organized the evidence carefully, like a prosecutor preparing for a big case. I made subfolders for different kinds of proof. Folder 137 was for overpromised delivery dates. Another folder held vendor invoices showing 28% markups that went straight to an LLC registered to her cousin. Another folder had recorded calls where she laughed about how nobody ever checked the fine print. Another folder contained text messages to her friends, bragging about the new handbag each closed deal bought her. I worked late into the night. The laptop glowed in the dark, showing all the folders I had created. Each folder told a story of what had really happened. I wanted to make sure that if anyone tried to blame me or twist the story, the truth would be ready. I leaned back in my chair and took a deep breath. For the first time in years I felt free. I had built the company from the ground up. I had done the hard work while others took credit. I had the evidence to protect myself and my team. And most importantly, I had the power to decide what I would do next. Folder 2 showed me that keeping all the promises we made had already cost the company $430,000. This was money we didn't plan to spend because workers had to do extra hours to fix things. Folder 36 was about mold problems in some older houses we had built. She, the person in charge, had secretly removed barriers that kept moisture out. She did this to save $8 for every square foot of the houses. That may not sound like a lot, but when you have hundreds or thousands of square feet, it adds up fast. I opened my own work contract, the one I had carefully made when my dad stepped down from being CEO. Section 8 was very clear, shining on the screen. It said that if anyone tried to suspend me without a real reason, I would immediately get 8 months of my salary and all my restricted company stocks would become mine right away. Yesterday morning they had tried to suspend me, which meant that I suddenly owned $680,000 in stocks that would hit my account by the next day. I quickly wrote my resignation letter. It only took me 10 minutes. It was polite, clear, and said I was leaving immediately. I mentioned the 2 parts of the contract I just read, Section 8 about the salary and the stocks, and I requested that they send the money by noon the next day. Then I wrote the email I would use to send it. The subject line was, Full transparency, the Ridge Collection and 5 years of projects. I sent this email to everyone important. Every board member, every bank officer who had given us construction loans, and all 42 investors who were waiting for the Ridge homes. I attached the entire folder of documents, compressed and password protected. The password was written in the body of the email so no one could say they never received it. I hit send at exactly 11:52 p.m. The second email went to my lawyer, Alaric Roon, who had been helping me for 8 years. I only wrote one line, severance clause triggered. Please be ready for closing instructions tomorrow. The third email went to Seraphine Dax, a recruiter who had been trying to hire me for 18 months at the biggest luxury rental company in the Southeast. The subject line said, available immediately. After I sent all 3 emails, I closed my laptop, finished the wine I had poured earlier, and went to bed. I didn't have a single dream all night, not even one. By sunrise, my phone was already vibrating so much it almost fell off the table. Board members wanted emergency meetings. Investors wanted calls immediately. There was even one frantic voicemail from Thayer, but I deleted it without listening. I took a shower, picked out my charcoal suit, the one I wore when I closed big 8-figure deals, and left my watch, the one my dad gave me the day Cale became CEO, on the dresser. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, ready to collect what was mine and never look back. The next morning at exactly 8:30, I walked through the lobby of the building one last time, still wearing my charcoal suit. The security guards recognized me but didn't stop me. The elevator ride felt longer than all the 12 years I had worked at that company. When the doors opened on the executive floor, Cale, Celine, my mother Isolde, my father Corvin, still listed as chairman emeritus, and Thayer were waiting outside the boardroom. They looked like a badly rehearsed intervention trying to stop me from leaving. Cale spoke first, his voice cracking but trying to sound strong. We need to talk before this goes any further. I kept walking, not looking at him. They followed me. Thayer stepped up next, clutching a legal pad like it could protect him. Zephyr, the email you sent is catastrophic. Investors are threatening to pull deposits. The banks are on the phone. We can still fix this if you send a retraction immediately. I stopped in front of the boardroom doors and faced them. No, I said. Celine stepped forward, eyes red but dry. You're destroying everything we've worked for because you're jealous. Just admit you made a mistake. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out 2 crisp copies of my resignation letter and the severance demand. I handed one set to Thayer and one to Cale. Effective 5 minutes ago, I said. Section 8 of my contract is very clear. 8 months salary plus immediate accelerated vesting of all restricted stock. $680,000 at yesterday's close. Wire instructions are attached. I expect confirmation by the end of the day. Thayer flipped through the pages, his face draining of color. This will bankrupt the company if the stock vests today. I looked at him calmly. Then you should have read the contract before suspending me. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. Zephyr, honey, think of your father. Think of the family name. I looked at Corvin. He hadn't said a word yet. His eyes were fixed on the marble floor, not moving. Isolde tried again, softer this time. We can work this out privately. Come inside. Sit down. Let's talk like we used to. I smiled for the first time that morning, but it wasn't warm. There is no we anymore. You made that decision the moment you stayed silent while Cale threatened to suspend me for telling the truth. Cale found his voice again. You can't just walk away with almost $700,000 after trying to burn the company down. I said, I'm walking away with exactly what the contract I negotiated says I'm owed. The company is burning because of 5 years of documented fraud that you refuse to see. Thayer made one last desperate lunge. If you withdraw the email right now, we'll forget the suspension ever happened. Full pay backdated, whatever you want. I stepped closer until I was looking him dead in the eye. Thayer, that email is the only thing keeping 42 investors from suing us into bankruptcy today. You want it gone? Tell them yourself why their homes won't be delivered for at least 2 more years and why half the materials were swapped for garbage. I turned to the rest of them. To be perfectly clear, I am no longer an employee. I am now a very large shareholder who just watched management commit fraud. My lawyer, Alaric Roon, will be in touch. I started walking again. Isolde reached for my arm. I stopped but didn't turn. Zephyra, please, she whispered. You're breaking your mother's heart. I looked back over my shoulder. No, Mom. You broke mine a long time ago. I'm just finally done paying for it. I walked away. No one followed this time. The elevator doors closed on 5 stunned faces. For the first time in my adult life, I felt completely, perfectly free. Less than 2 weeks later, the Ridge collection officially exploded. 38 of the Ori Zephyral 42 investors filed a joint federal lawsuit in Charlotte, asking for $32 million in compensatory and punitive damages because of fraud, breach of contract, deceptive trade practices, and negligent misrepresentation. The 187-page complaint quoted my email word for word. It included every invoice, every change order, every recorded call I had sent, and even added new exhibits the banks quietly provided once the construction loans fell into technical default. By the time the filing hit the court docket, every major real estate blog in the Southeast had the headline, Evren held on for exactly 9 days after walking out. On the 9th morning, he marched into Cale's office, placed his MacBook on the desk and said, I'm not wearing an orange jumpsuit for any of you. He resigned on the spot, signed his new employer's offer that same afternoon, and took 12 of the best senior project managers with him before the week was out. The ones who stayed were either too inexperienced or too scared to leave. Neither group knew how to finish 42 ultra-luxury homes that were suddenly missing half their structural beams and all of their promised timelines. The company went into a full meltdown. Emergency board calls happened at 3 a.m., and crisis public relations agencies were brought in on 6-figure retainers. Cale flew first class to Charlotte twice in 4 days, begging the lead investor for a private settlement. They escorted him out of the building with security to make sure he didn't try anything. Then on a cold, rainy Thursday night, my phone lit up with the old landline from my parents' house in Biltmore Forest, the number I hadn't answered in years. I let it ring 5 times before I picked it up. Isolde spoke first, her voice trembling so hard the speaker crackled. Zephyr, honey, we're all here. You're the speaker. I stayed silent. Corvin cleared his throat. The man who once closed 8-figure deals with a handshake now sounded like he hadn't slept in days. We were wrong. Completely wrong. We see it now. We are so sorry. Cale jumped in frantic. The banks are calling every loan tomorrow morning. If we lose the Ridge, we lose the company, the house, the planes, everything your father built. Everything you built. It's all gone unless you help us. I heard the unmistakable thud of knees hitting the hardwood floor in the living room I grew up in. Isolde started sobbing openly. We're on our knees, baby, she said. All 3 of us were lying on the floor. Cale's voice sounded broken and tired. Please come back, he said. Just 6 months. We only need 6 months of your help. His voice was raw, shaky, and desperate. Name your price. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, whatever you want. Stock, cash, anything. You write the number. You are the only person alive who can still save this. I stood at the tall floor-to-ceiling window in my new corner office in Charlotte, 30 floors above the city. Rain streaked down the glass in long lines, sliding slowly like the tears I didn't feel. This was the same city where the lawsuit had just been filed. The same city where my new title, Executive Vice President of Development, was already printed on the shiny plaque on my office door. I waited until the crying on the phone quieted down to soft hiccups. Then I spoke the only sentence they would ever hear from me again. Never again. I ended the call. I blocked the landline. I blocked Kale's cell number. I blocked Isolde's cell. I blocked the house number one last time for good measure. I set the phone face down on the desk. I turned back to the rain-streaked skyline and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even guilt. Nothing. 18 months later, Lorne Luxury Stays was no longer owned by the Lorne family. A private equity group from Atlanta bought it for a fire sale price, just 42 cents on the dollar of what it had been worth before the lawsuit. They kept the company name but fired 2/3 of the remaining staff. The rest were turned into glorified property managers for the few buildings that survived foreclosure. Kale was escorted out on the same day the deal closed. No severance. No goodbye party. No, thank you for your hard work. Just a single banker's box in his arms as security walked him to the parking lot. The official reason was gross mismanagement and loss of investor confidence. But everyone knew the real reason. The new owners didn't want the face of the scandal anywhere near the company they had just bought. Celine lasted exactly 1 week after Kale lost his title. She packed her designer bags into the Land Rover that was no longer hers, left the keys on the kitchen island and disappeared. 6 weeks later, word came that she had moved to Miami with a 39-year-old nightclub promoter. Kale's social media went dark the same day. My parents put the Biltmore Forest estate on the market 3 months after the sale. 8 bedrooms, 12,000 square feet, 40 years of memories, all sold for less than they owed the bank. The Florida condo went next, sold to a cash buyer from New York for pennies on the dollar. My parents moved into a small 2-bedroom rental in Hendersonville, the kind of place they used to laugh at when driving past it on the way to charity parties. Meanwhile, I was named Executive Vice President of Development at Apex Mountain Residences, the largest luxury vacation rental operator in the Southeast and Lorne Luxury Stays' fiercest competitor for a decade. My first official act was greenlighting a 48-home community on the ridge directly across the valley from what used to be the Ridge Collection. Now the old Ridge Collection was a half-finished ghost town of wooden skeletons and leaning frames. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Evren ran construction. Leora handled permitting. Oren oversaw design. 12 former Lorne employees now sat in the top roles at Apex, and every one of them had a story about the day they decided loyalty to the family name wasn't worth their careers. I still lived in the same Charlotte loft, but the view had changed. My office was now 32 floors above the city, and the portfolio under my control had tripled in size. Revenue was up 47% year-over-year. The board gave me a standing ovation at the annual meeting when I presented the numbers. I never checked the old Lorne website again. I didn't need to. The new owners had scrubbed every trace of the founding family from the About page. The only reminder left was a faded bronze plaque in the lobby of the Ori Zephrel office building that no one bothered to take down. Some nights, I drove the hour back to Asheville just to see the lights from my new development twinkling across the valley, bright, orderly, and on schedule. Across the way, the skeletons on the old ridge stayed dark. I never felt triumph. I never felt pity. I just felt finished. The story was over and I had written the last line myself. Then one day a text thread appeared on my phone from 3 numbers I thought were dead and buried. The first was Kale's old personal cell. The second belonged to Isolde. The third was the ancient landline from the house that no longer carried our name. They had created a group chat titled Family. Kale wrote first. Even in text the words were shaky. Zephyr, we know you hate us. We deserve it. But please, just one dinner. 1 hour. We want to look you in the eye, explain everything and apologize properly. No excuses, no asking for anything, just us saying we're sorry for the rest of our lives. Please. Isolde followed with a voice note. 31 seconds of raw crying. Baby, I was blind. I chose the wrong child every single day. I see it now. I lost you and I lost everything else because of it. If you never speak to me again, I understand, but please let me say it to your face. Just once. Corvin sent a single photograph. The 3 of them sat on a plain couch in a rental living room I didn't recognize. They were holding a handwritten sign in thick black marker that read, We were wrong. Another message from Kale. We'll come to Charlotte or meet anywhere you say. Neutral ground. We just want 5 minutes of your time before you close the door forever. I read every word twice. Then I pressed and held each of the 3 numbers. Block this contact. Yes. Block this contact. Yes. Block this contact. Yes. The screen went quiet. I set the phone on the marble island, poured a glass of water and looked out over the city I now called home. They finally understood the cost of choosing favoritism over fairness, of choosing comfort over truth, of choosing the easy child over the one who carried the weight. I wasn't going to give them the relief of hearing my voice confirm it. Some apologies arrived too late to matter. Some doors once closed stay closed. I had built a life without them and it was brighter, cleaner and more honest than anything they had ever offered. The chapter was finished the day I walked out. Today I simply turned the page and kept reading forward. I remember the first day I decided I couldn't go back. I remember standing in that old house, looking at the walls covered in pictures, the ones of us as children smiling at birthdays and holidays, and thinking how easy it would have been to forgive them. But I knew that forgiveness would be a lie. I knew that if I gave them one chance I would be trapped in the past, watching the same mistakes repeat themselves. I thought about Kale and Celine and Isolde and everything they had taken from me. The sleepless nights, the stress, the fights, the favoritism that never made sense. I thought about the house, the company, the Biltmore Forest estate, the Florida condo. All gone. And then I thought about what I had now. The Charlotte loft with the skyline view. The Apex Mountain portfolio with hundreds of homes, thriving and growing. I thought about the team of people who believed in me, who had left Lorne because they trusted me more than they trusted a broken family name. And then I realized something. I didn't feel triumphant because I had beaten them. I didn't feel joy because I had been proven right. I simply felt complete. The story of my life with them was over, and I had finally taken control of the ending. Some nights, when the city lights twinkled far below and the rain slid down the windows like tiny rivers, I would remember the sound of Kale's voice pleading on the phone. I would remember Isolde's soft, broken cries. And I would feel nothing. That was the point. I had survived. I had built something real and solid, something they could never touch again. I drove past the old Ridge collection sometimes. The skeletons of those unfinished homes leaned into the wind, quiet, sad, and abandoned. And I thought, good. Let it stay dark. Let it stay unfinished. That was their life now. My life moved forward. My life had grown taller, brighter, steadier. I had learned an important lesson. Some people will never change. Some people will never apologize in time. Some doors once closed must stay closed for your own peace. And some stories, no matter how much you wish you could rewrite them, end the way they were meant to. I had written mine. I had walked away from the pain and I had built a life that was mine alone. I poured another glass of water and watched the rain slide down the window. The city was alive below me, filled with cars, lights and movement, but it didn't touch me. I was above it all now. Not better, not worse, just finished. Complete. And for the first time in years I could finally breathe. Then the messages came. And I did not flinch. I did not respond. I did not even look back. I knew what they wanted. They wanted forgiveness. They wanted closure. They wanted relief for themselves. But I had my own life now, and it was brighter, cleaner, and more honest than anything they had ever offered me. Some apologies arrived too late. Some doors once closed are closed forever. I had turned the page long ago. I had built my life without them. And now I kept reading forward.